Okay, we're getting ready to put a new strut cartridge in the 280Z. I decided to do this time, I do the leave the spindle pin in place and tilt the strut out. There's enough room to do it as long as you get the car up high enough in the first place. Start this process, obviously tire comes off, disconnect the brake. You don't want this cable here stuck up in this little holding position. I'll be replacing that anyway. Disconnect the emergency brake. Unbolt the 4 bolts, they're all right over there, that go into the half shaft. Loosen the spindle pin nuts. Loosen the main control arm nuts. That's very important, because if you don't do that, you'll really stress out the rubber insulator in there unless you put polyurethane, which I don't recommend doing. But anyway, if you have the standard OE rubber, it'll actually tear that up. That's not good. So loosen those 2 big, I think they're 24 millimeter bolts on the outside. So basically, and unbolt the I can't remember what that's called right now. This bar, sway bar. Disconnect the sway bar from the control arm. Once you've got all that loose, the only thing that's holding it in position at that point are the 4 bolts that go right up here that hold the insulator on. So you loosen these. I use the jack. I put it underneath the spindle pin there so that I could hold the weight of it. Undo those 3 bolts that are on the top of the strut mount insulator. Use the jack, let it come down. It'll clear, once it gets down far enough, it'll clear this and just clear past the fender there. And then the whole thing will just tilt out. Get your BFH, if you don't have the right tool. Here, hang on. Get this hooked up. Is a big adjustable wrench. I use a 24-inch wrench. There's a correct tool for this, but I don't have it, so this becomes the correct tool. And I guarantee you, you will not find one that will resist that. Okay, and the beautiful thing about doing it this way is the spindle pin holds the bottom side, so you don't have to fight with that one to turn. So now that I have this loose, I'll pull these guts out. There'll be a bunch of oil be pouring out here when I do that, because this is not a cartridge. This is the actual strut. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I had to replace the other side, because the other side, the pistons here had some rust on it, and it was compromising the seal, so it's causing the leak. I don't want to have imbalanced struts, so I'll put the same kind of strut on both sides. These are Sachs non-pressurized struts. They're not available anymore. I got it from a member who had bought them as new old stock. And then put the strut in there, put it all back together, put this, spring compressor, forgot that, duh. Before I got this point, this was on. Spring compressor, compress the spring. Make sure you pull this gator up before you even start that process, before you do anything. Pull the gator up, get him to clear this strut housing, get him all the way up. Put your spring compressor, compress the spring. You'll know you've got it loose enough when this part here, the strut insulator will move a little bit. Then you go unbolt. I think that's a 14 millimeter nut. I think it's that one. Let's see. Right, and there you go. That's it. Then take that nut off. This whole assembly slides out. Then you can get access to the gland nut. Undo the gland nut. Put the new strut in, put a little bit of oil in there if you want, and just reverse the process. Anyway, that's it. Like I said, I'm going to replace that brake hose, and it'll probably be too hot to do it today. It's 105, feels like 105 in Central Florida right now, so I don't really want to do this. It's probably a little cooler now. But eventually I'll replace that brake cylinder as well. I have a new one. I'll use the same e-brake hardware, because I think that's better than the Chinese-made stuff, but you can't hardly find a decent brake cylinder made in Japan anymore, unless you find new old stock. Anyway, that's it. So we'll put it all back together, and we'll have the balanced strut. This is a lot easier approach than the way I did the other side, where I pulled the spindle pin. I just want to try both ways, and yeah, I would definitely go this way if I had to do it again. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Bye.